it's Sunday and it's no longer daylight saving time, or is it? I don't remember which is the correct time and which is not the correct time. And I am horrible out of focus. So I'm going to see if I can pull that back there. Welcome to the European Ham Radio Show, everyone. And today we're a true European Ham Radio Show with only the Europeans here. And we got an exciting topic in front of us today. We're going to talk about not which HT you should choose, but how to get your first HT, what to consider. Because as everything else in ham radio, the correct answer is it depends. So let's go on to the ham radio moment of the week first. So, Kjetil, what's your ham radio moment of the week?
I've been on 80 meters all week, or been sick, as it's called. So I haven't done any activating, but I was part of, did some MCOMs training, just training on how to use our internet communications trailer, or like satellite communications trailer. So that's the only thing that reminds me of a radio that I've touched this week.
Oh, that's still a radio, though. So,
yep.
I mean, Wi-Fi is radio.
Oh, yeah.
5G is radio, although it'll lead to some bad things. It'll give you COVID or something, I think. But besides that, 5G is still radio. I hope we were within the safe zone of saying that on YouTube.
We're going to have a flag underneath now.
Yeah.
Like
fake news.
And welcome everyone that's watching. I hope it's been easy for you guys to adjust to the new time, which is not a new time for us, but a new time for someone else.
Do we still have a delay between the US time zone change and the European one? Like there always is like 1 week where ours have changed and theirs have not, or vice versa. I can't remember.
I think it's a 2-week period or something. And besides that, though,
okay, so in 2 weeks it will be confusing again, or is that what you're telling me?
In 2 weeks we'll be back to normal until the EU perhaps decides to get rid of daylight saving time.
Yeah, well. Let's see if hell freezes over.
Then it's going to be even more complicated.
To be fair, it's not just the American and the European or the EU time zone to change dates. There are other dates as well. So in South America has other dates. They switch from switch off daylight savings, and I think I switched 3 times 1 year. I was in Mexico and the US and in Norway. And I switched time zone 3 times.
India is also fun. They have a half-hour time zone, so like it's
yeah. That's
5.5 hours difference or something like this for me.
And Iceland is permanently on summertime now, as far as I've read. Whereas Russia is permanently on wintertime, just to make this even more complicated.
But it being permanently on wintertime, isn't that just being moved 1 time zone over?
That depends on if we're on UTC +1 or +2.
Yeah, but it's basically if you just stay on 1 time zone all the time. At least if you stay on summertime all the time, that's just shifting 1 time zone over, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
why not?
Why not? We'll see what happens.
That's why UTC was invented, and we should stick to it, I think.
Yeah,
I think we should go with Swatch time, if anyone remembers that.
No, don't go with that.
The Swatch watch company, they made up a new time thing that's supposed to be perfect with 1,000 or 10, 10 count or 10 count numbers. So it's a lot easier to follow, but nobody used it.
That did not fix any of the problems with the current way of keeping time, and it introduced a whole heap of new ones.
Not even 5 minutes in and already off topic. Well done.
We are so off topic. I just got a little bit I have to add here, though, because at one point the French had 100 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, I think Rode and Schwarz, the company, is still doing that. Yeah, if you work for Rode and Schwarz, you have 100 unit times. I'm not sure if 100 unit is 1 hour exactly, but they really do that.
With the risk of alienating our French viewers, I'm sort of surprised that they chose 100 units in an hour. Being French, I would suspect that they would choose 99.5. So,
Yeah.
but
Tobias,
French-
how has your ham radio week been?
Not a lot of ham radio. The ham radio happened yesterday where hang on a second, I need to find the right button. I bought this nice thing, yeah?
Yeah.
It looks very rustic, but it's a glass case, and I decided to give up on my handset obsession and say, okay, I have way too many handsets that I can use, but I can at least put them in a nice case now. So I basically gave in to the obsession and decided, hey, I'm starting a collection.
And that's not half a bad idea, though, because several of us couldn't actually find all the HTs we wanted to show off today for today's show. So
yeah, and they get dusty when they're just standing around. Yeah, so I thought a nice, glass case is maybe a good idea.
Yeah, that is nice. Actually a pretty smart idea. Anything else?
No, just gave the function generator that I built last week Sunday after the live stream a quick test, and it seems to work. It's not the super high quality, high end kit, but it was a fun build and it's working. Yeah, so but it's also cheap. So if something goes wrong, you basically destroyed €8. Yeah, so no big deal.
Yep, but you got something else from eBay in addition to that cabinet, didn't you, Tobias?
That's right. I just don't have a photo. I bought a Kenwood TH79E. That's it, right?
Yeah.
That goes with my, hang on a second, that goes with my TH78E, which I will show in a few minutes. So
awesome.
The problem is it comes with UPS, or maybe it does not come with UPS. We'll find out.
It'll be here. It will be here before Christmas. We just don't know which Christmas it will be.
Yeah, and it was sold as defect, and I'm not sure if the display is 100% working, so I might have to take it apart and clean the rubber, the display rubber, with some alcohol. So it's a bit of a risk, but even if it doesn't work, it can go into the cabinet as a beautiful show item.
Oh, absolutely. So, and that's half of the charm with old radios. Not necessarily that you're going to use them, but that you can actually just show them off.
Yeah, and you can appreciate it, because I think that these days they all the handsets, they are so chunky, and I really find them really ugly. Yeah, there's an LCD screen, and they're big and fat and chunky, and I mean the handsets in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, they had a bit of more character, I thought. Yeah, these days they all look the same, which is a bit boring.
Everything was better before, is what you're saying.
Right, that's the nostalgia. Yeah.
Speaking about communications technology where everything looks the same, this is also a good example of that.
Right.
Yeah, but if you look at like old walkie-talkies from the 70s and 80s, they're kind of chunky as well. They're like
yeah, but that was because the battery technology was not there, and they had the huge and they were also sometimes powered with 12 volt, and you have to put a lot of AA cells in until you get to your 12 volts. Yeah.
So but let's move on so we can talk about how to buy your first HT after a while. I'm sure we're gonna circle around to this topic at some point. Bob, how many HTs do you have at the airport in Frankfurt?
Zero.
Absolutely
none. I did not bring an HT at all. I should have, because I think the Germans are good at using APRS. But I didn't bring any. But I brought the 705 instead down to Germany, and I have done 23 summits and accumulated 228 SOTA points in the last week. So basically, what I've been doing,
I've been in one piece and haven't hurt yourself, which is the most important bit.
That is true. I've on purpose, I've not asked anyone about the local wildlife conditions, because I think that might have stopped me from going into some of these wooded areas where the summits were. I'm pretty sure I saw a place where they put out apples to feed wild boar. And yeah, that was an interesting activation. I was looking over my shoulder the whole time. But yeah,
You
that's
should
fine.
you should not mess around with wild boar.
That's why I was looking over my shoulder.
Unless you're carrying a big rock on your back and have blue and white striped pants and a really tiny
yeah,
friend and an even tinier dog.
I, I'm not getting that reference, but
Asterisk.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. All right, true,
But
true.
but even
I'm
if you're
sorry
doing
about that.
like you're doing very simple, or some of the summits are quite easy down there, I think, for the 10 points. But even with that, 23 summits in a week, that's amazing. Like
Yep.
so many times rigging up and down hills and whatever.
Yeah,
That
and
was cool.
a really cool thing. I've been doing a few videos on the on powering radios from USB power banks, and so I decided to for this entire trip, I've been powering all the activations from a USB power bank, and I've been carrying along a what's called amazingly enough a 10,000 milliamp hour power bank they call them, which is basically 10 amp hours at 3.7 volts. And the days where I've been doing the most activations, that been 5 activations in a day, and still that power bank was less than half drained at the end of the day. So doing USB power banks for summits on the air with at least with the 705, it works fantastically, and it cuts down so much on the things that you need to bring, because I will bring a power bank anyway in case I need to charge my phone. So it's been a nice experiment as well in doing that. So I'll try and do a follow-up video on that to show how well that actually works, at least for a QRP radio. And yeah, I think that's about it. I for the first time in my life, I understood what people mean when they say it's a breathtaking view. I was up on, let's see, Delta Mike Bravo Whiskey 003. I can't remember the name of it, but you can look it up on the SOTA website. And the view from up on top of that summit, it was like nothing I've ever seen. I didn't want to go down. I just kept staring at that fantastic view from that summit. So that's yeah, it's been a really, really great week. Looking forward to get back now, but yeah, fantastic week of summits on the air activations in. I think it's called the Black Forest, isn't that correct, Tobias? This part of Germany.
Yep.
Yep.
Sounds right.
So, yep. So yeah, I'll be back here. Maybe not next year, but eventually I'll be back here. It's been a really, really fun week. That was a long moment, wasn't it?
That was a long moment.
So-
It's my I guess it's my turn now.
Absolutely.
First of all, I can tell you what hasn't been my ham radio moment of the week. I got more of those, but let's do the highlight of the what's not the ham radio moment of the week first. Because I was watching Josh over at Ham Radio Crash Course. He had some kind of lecture for a ham radio club and posted that on YouTube this morning. And he said when he answered one of the questions, if you want to get a lot of views on your videos, do a Baofeng video. So I did. And I really want to thank the 104 people that have watched this video in 24 hours. But more so, this video has a click-through rate of 1.2%. So that means that only 1.2% of the people that have had this video suggested has actually clicked and watched it. So no, Baofeng video will not necessarily give you views on YouTube.
Yeah.
And now what has been my ham radio moment of the week, and there's basically just one. I was stupid enough to go out and do a Parks on the Air activation during CQ Worldwide yesterday. Set up on 17 meters. First, I tried 10 meters. Figured that'd be a good ban. There wasn't a single free spot on 10 meters.
Wow.
The issue with 17 meters was that everyone that didn't want to do a contest was all chunked up on 17. So I actually had to wait for a guy to say, "Oh, I'm now QRT," to spot myself and start calling. Managed about 20 in the log. But it was rough. A lot of QRM and not a fun PODA. But that's my ham radio moment of the week.
Imagine how many you could get if you just went hunting. Like
Oh,
with
I
100 watts.
could, but I really didn't feel like doing contest. So that's just I got a couple of North America on sideband on Friday though, when people were warming up to the contest. But probably be better next week. So
I have to say I had to do the activations on 17 meters both yesterday and today because of the contest as well. And I saw the same thing that you did. I actually spent quite a while finding a 3 kilohertz sliver where I could call CQ. But I think that's just amazing because normally you go on 17 meters, you can call CQ for an hour and no one will respond. And yesterday and today, that band was full. So I think we need more contests so that normal people like us will be forced to use some of the alternate bands. I was smiling when I saw that 17 was full. I think that's a very good thing.
My experience is when speaking about the work bands, 12 meters. It's a fantastic band. As soon as you spot yourself and start calling, you'll get all kinds of DX on 12 meters. And there's always room on 12.
If you're a contest station, there's always room for you.
And if there isn't, you just make room.
Yes, and like 3 kilohertz, no, half a kilohertz. That's more than enough separation. If you have a big enough power amplifier. So can be rough these weekends, and of course another alternative is going digital to FT8 or Morse code or something else like that, and that's also a possibility.
Absolutely,
but it is a good chance to actually try the walk bands and see what you can do there. And I found it really amazing that so many people actually ended up on 17. I probably should have tried 12 as well, but I think it's great. Let's bring the contests on. Let's move our stuff to the walk bands and work there because they're really underutilized. So I think we should do this a lot more.
Yep. I got a monoband antenna for 17 for exactly that purpose, to just use 17. But let's see. What should we consider when buying our first HT? We probably have, the four of us probably have 3 triple digits of HTs when we look around in drawers or something. But after I posted a stream, we got a lady on Discord. I can't remember her name right now, but she started asking about getting her first HT, and I figured it's a good place to start. And William says that let's see, where did that there license? Yeah, that's probably the first thing to consider when getting an HT. But besides that, and my thought is, as everything else in hobby, it depends. It depends if you want to do DMR, if you want to do Yaesu System Fusion, if you want to do D-Star, if you want to do analog FM. And Charlotte Hayes over in Discord asked about her first HT. And it's such a hard question to answer, though, because there are so many factors to consider. But let's see, Kjetil, what would you advise regarding a first HT?
I would go for price, and that's an option that's natural for people now. When I got my first HT, that was just around when the Baofeng UV5Rs started being like really affordable and cheap and available. And before that, like hand terminals, you've seen some of them can be quite expensive, but also like the series manufacturers like Yaesu, they have cheap versions as well. So think how much money you want to put into it if you want to get a new one, which of course will be trouble-free and not abused by somebody and so on. So think about how much money you want to put into it, and that you may not want to go for like one of those fancy Kenwoods that cost €1,000 or so the first time.
No, that's a valid point, because your first HT, as we can see from both Tobias here, and let me switch cameras here, and me, these were just the three that I had on my desk right now. Your first HT, or your first radio, for that sake, is not going to be your last radio if you're stuck in this hobby. But I think an important point is to find the middle ground. Don't get a Baofeng or a Quansheng as your first radio, and I want to circle back to that later on. Also, don't get a Kenwood D75 or a Yaesu FD5D as your first radio. Try to go
Or
as cheap.
ICOM, what is it called?
D52?
Yeah.
Or
something
50,
like that.
51. I'm kind of confused. I think the 51 is the top model, and the 52 is the top model without Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and a color screen.
Yeah.
I think there's
But
one with color screen and one with black and white screen. But anyway, they're both expensive. I mean, in the upper price range, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, for many people, the first radio they will get will be a hand terminal that they get as a hand down from another ham in the club, or they buy cheap. So that's also, but not everybody is that lucky. But quite many places you'll find get like an old radio and here play around with that just to get people on air.
Yeah, and I'm thinking somewhere around the, let's say the 100 to 200 euro US dollar segment is probably a good place to start.
Yeah.
I have a sort of a differing opinion, and that springs from what you said, that between us, we probably have a triple-digit number of HDs lying around in drawers and cabinets and sofas, and yeah. If you're serious about this hobby, buy the most expensive or feature-packed HD that you can actually afford. And if you can only afford one that's 50 euros, that's okay. That's absolutely a capable device that can do lots and lots of cool things. But if you buy a Kenwood DH75, you can sell that radio in 2 years for almost as much as you paid now, if you treat it nicely. And you get a really, really, really nice radio with lots and lots of good capabilities. So if you can afford it, go for it. Buy a really good, expensive radio right away. Because that way you're not going to end up with drawers and drawers full of HDs that you don't use anymore.
I think that's maybe a common truth. You know, set yourself a budget and get the best you can, best bang for the buck, basically. Yeah. So if you have 100 spare, get the best for 100. If you have 800 spare, get the best for your 800. Yeah, but that's how I usually bought my computer equipment. You know, in the olden days when you built your own computers, yeah, you said, hey, I need a graphics card. How much do I want to spend? $500. Okay, get the best graphic card at the day when you buy for $500, right?
Yeah, and set your budget a little bit lower than the actual money you're gonna spend, though, because you are gonna go over budget at some point.
Okay, that can also happen, right?
Also, an important thing to consider is resale value. Basically, the resale value of a Baofeng is zero. Whereas some of the Kenwood radios, they actually go occasionally after Kenwood stops producing them, because Kenwood normally does that. After they create a really successful model, they will normally stop producing it after about 2 minutes. And so oftentimes you can actually pay more for a used Kenwood radio because Kenwood stopped producing them. They have fantastic resale value, and that's also important to consider, I think.
I see that the old ones are still full duplex capable, not like the D74, D75. You know,
that is true.
A few generations older, they were full duplex, and you could do satellite with them, right?
So if you can find a D72, you're probably going to pay almost as much for a 5 to 5, 6, 7-year-old D72 as you are for a new D75. That says something about the resale value of these Kenwood radios.
Yeah, but not everyone can afford that for an HD, because at some point you're going to get an HF rig, you're going to get a power supply, you're going to get coax, antennas, and all that. So it adds up pretty quickly, though.
Okay, so on the one side there's the money, the money issue. On the other side, there you should check, what kind of repeaters you have in your vicinity. I mean, most likely you always have an analog repeater near you, but if there anything digital around you, you might want to check, what your colleagues in the club are using. Are they all on DMR? Are they all doing D-Star? Are they all doing, what's the other one? System Fusion. Get one where you can really talk with your friends, right?
Absolutely. And I see Darren suggest TYT 390 with Open GD77. And I got the sister radio of that, the Retivis RT3S. And while Open GD77 is a fantastic open source firmware for radio, let's say it's not exactly beginner friendly if you haven't used a radio before.
Yeah,
So,
and not everybody is would be happy flashing their own firmwares and so on. They want something that would work.
Exactly. Then again, that might give you the absolutely best DMR experience possible, but it's not necessarily easy. I can show you my overhead camera here because I found a couple of 3 radios here. They're both pretty basic. You got the Quansheng UV, I think this is a UVK6, but they're all the same. You got the ever-present Baofeng, and you got the TID radio THH3. And I don't really want to recommend any of these as the beginner first radio. And if I should, it'd probably be the Baofeng because that's tried and true, and you can always ask a ham. This Quansheng is a great experimental platform. You can load different kind of firmware on it, and it can even transmit, it transmits on several bands at the same time. So this is under no circumstances a legal radio, but it's a fun radio to experiment with. Let's put it that way. The Baofeng, simple, and it works, and it actually takes quite a bit of beating. Both these are somewhere in the $20 to $35 range. This one is halfway decent radio. It's a little bit more expensive, about $40, but it's still a cheap Chinese radio. And these are the radios you get when you want to try other things and experiment.
Yeah. One interesting thing there, Martin, is, or you can see on your radios, is that you've replaced the antenna on at least a few of those from the stock ones. So that's also something that, at least if you're buying in the lower price range, you may want to fork out for another more expensive antenna as well. Because some of the ones, for example, this stock one on the Baofeng, it is not the world's best antenna.
No, and if you're getting one of these radios, make sure you get a good monoband antenna. So they'll suppress your harmonics, to put it that way. I see you got a couple of radios down there, Tobias. And one of those is actually my recommendation if I need to recommend one radio for a beginner.
Yeah, and I guess it will be the Anytone because it has decent HF output and can do DMR. And a lot of hubs have it, so you can get help with your code plug setting it up. Yeah, and this is as you said, this is a UVK5, and I got it because I also got the little add-on here that our friend Paul OM0ET has made a few videos about, and that gives it basically SSB reception on HF bands. Yeah, so if you put this in, you might get decent HF reception. And I want to try this and then compare it with the Kenwood, which also has HF reception. Yeah, so then I can make a nice video saying, okay, can this one beat the Kenwood?
Yep.
I don't know, just for fun, of course. Yeah, and then this is my my trusted and beloved Kenwood TH78E, and yeah, of course, if I go close here to my overhead lamp, I pick up all the noise from the LED supply. But yeah, this is a really, I really still love it, and it's also a bit of a different form factor. If you see here, it's like almost square, and it's just a nice thing to hold. Yeah, so this is still my favorite. Yeah, I can't help it. Okay.
Yeah, and I see that Charles here says that the Anytone has been recommended by so many people, so she thinks that'll be her first one. And someone is having their speaker on here.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
Tobias, when you switch scene, we got an echo from you when some of us are talking.
No, it's gone. Don't worry. I just had to use the wireless microphone when I walked to my desk, which is 2 meters away. And when I walked back, you heard a bit of echo, but it should be gone now.
But I think, Charlotte, you won't go wrong with an Anytone. It's a good radio. It's a sturdy radio. And pretty much, well, it's easier to program it via the PC than the front panel, but it's possible to use it both ways as well.
Yeah.
I can also support that. I have that radio as well. That was the first HD that I actually brought along on expeditions, and yeah, I think it's a very nice radio. The battery saving technology that they have in that thing, I've forgotten that thing on for days, and it still had the battery left. And at least mine does transmit APRS. I think there's a model that does receive as well. I'm not sure how well it does it, but that might be worth checking out if you're interested in APRS, that you get one that can maybe also receive APRS, if I remember correctly. So just that you get the right model.
One. Yeah, the newer ones will do that.
Good comment from William here. There are different versions of the Anytone, and the one that I have still has the smaller memory, so I can't get all the call signs in. Because the number of DMR users has grown beyond the capacity of the handset. So get a later version which has enough storage if you buy one.
I don't think that's really important to get every DMR user in the entire world's call sign into your handheld. It's not really that important. You can still talk to people even if you don't have them in the database.
Yeah, if you know the limitation, can live with it, then you can also get one second hand. There are people swapping them out. Yeah, just get rid of the old one with less memory, and they buy a new one. Yeah, so you can maybe make a bargain and get a in quotes old version. I mean, they're basically identical. It's just a different flash chip, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's still a very good radio.
And I also saw that Jürgen over at Alpine Radio Waves recommends the Yaesu FD60, and I got a Yaesu FD60. It's a robust radio. It's built like a tank, and I love that radio. Even though I don't really know where it is now. So that is one of my favorite radios. It's really simple. Even for a Yaesu, it's really simple. So it's a good beginner radio. Either that or the Yaesu FX4. No, not FX, FT4X, which is kind of the Yaesu compete with the cheap Chinese radio, is also a good choice. Jeff comments that the BTEC 6x2 is pretty much the same as the Anytone. It is exactly the same as the Anytone. So that is also an alternative, and I think that's primarily for the US market. But it's hard to recommend just one. I find that kind of the difficult questions I get when people ask me, what kind of gear should I get? Because it depends on so many factors. But I think the most important thing to remember here is that your first radio is not going to be your last radio if you last in this hobby.
Yeah, and one thing you may want to consider, say, quite a lot of people want these for survival reasons or like security reasons, especially over in the States with the hurricanes and so on. So then you also need somewhere to stash these in a safe way, like a pellet case or some other thing like that. And that can also add a bit to your budget if you want to like store it in a safe place. Unless you already have that.
All the bits and pieces add on and cost you money. But part of it is I'm going to say the charm of the hobby, and it also depends because this hobby has so many facets. So it depends what kind of the hobby you kind of go for after a while, and to figure that out, you need to try out a couple of different things and feel your way through it. I see that Matthew got a Yaesu FT40D as his first HT, and that is also a good alternative. I just got one complaint about that radio, and that is
70D.
Yeah, the 70D. Sorry, I probably said something else there. It's a great radio, but it's got about 2.5 hours of battery life and takes about 16 hours to charge. If you don't add on with the Asus fast charger, which costs about the same as the radio.
Yeah, that's the same problem as I have with my FT2DE now. It's that's getting an old radio though, so and with old batteries, and well, it lasts for 2 or 3 hours, turned on in standby mode. And if you dare send anything with it, then the battery just completely dies. So that's a pretty useless radio at the moment. But you can always get a new battery, of course.
Yeah, and batteries are.
That's a really nice thing, as I said about the Anytone radio. That has got a really long battery life on it. So I think that in itself is a reason to get that radio if you want something to carry around. And if you're okay with the DMR, then yeah, as I said, easily 24 hours on receive on that radio. That's pretty amazing compared to what you say 2-3 hours on some of the HDs.
Yeah, I see Paul in here asks about several batteries as well for storage. Yeah, depends on what you want to do. So if you know that you're going to use the radio for more than like a short POTA SOTA activation, if you know that you, for example, want to operate for 24 hours, then you need at least 2 batteries. You need a way to charge them away from the radio so that you can actually swap batteries and not leave your radio indoors while it's charging. So there's a lot of things to consider if your use case is that you're going to have extended use of that radio.
And if you're going to use it for preparedness, it's a whole different set of features that gets important, especially regarding charging, because you can't rely on mains power to charge it. So you need something that can charge either via 12 volts or USB.
Yeah, and I've seen a few radios, I think, where the batteries have USB-C built into the battery itself. And, well, that solves things, basically.
Oops.
Let's see.
I think you can actually get a battery like that for the Anytone we've talked about, with a USB-C charge port in the back. So that's
you can get that
as well.
You can get that for the Anytone. You can get it for Baofeng. You can get USB-C batteries. The Quanshangs and the TID radios have USB. Oh, we lost Tobias. They have a USB-C built in. So it all depends on your use case, and that makes it a little bit hard to make one recommendation. So I just want to shed the light on the differences between the radios.
Yeah. And Jeff makes an interesting point there with 23 centimeter. And mostly when you talk hand terminal, you talk 2 meter and 70 centimeters. But there are several other bands you can get the hand terminals for. You can get for 6 meters. You can get for 4 meters, I believe. You can get for 11 meters and 10 meters. So there's a lot of different use cases. And of course, you have the completely license-free ones like PMR and KDR and whatever it's called over in the States.
FRS, so, I think. And the Americans also have another ham radio band, the 1.25 meter band over at 220.
So there's a lot of variation there, and typically like a ham radio one will go 2 meters and 1.25 meters and 70 centimeters, I think. That's like the normal ones, but the 1.25 is something we don't see over here, of course.
No. And I see that Potato says for survival purposes, USB-C directly on the battery is a must. It doesn't even have to be a survival situation. It can be a lose power for a week situation, which don't necessarily translates to a survival situation, but a situation where you need comms. Either that or most Asus can charge via 12 volts directly. So, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, and also, for example, if you're out doing search and rescue work, then being able to charge in the field is kind of important. You probably won't have access to 220 volts or 110 volts, at least not easy access for that.
So all these kinds are considerations you got to make. For me, HTs is something I play around with, and 2 meters isn't that active around here, and the activity is usually on repeaters where 5 watts won't do it, at least with the stock antenna or rubber duck on the radio. So that brings us on to another aspect to think about, and that's an external antenna for the radio, and not one on the radio, but an antenna outside.
Yeah. And possibly external microphone also. But say you want to do hunt for satellites, or if you want to do SOTA with 2 meters, then probably you want to get something else like a Yagi or a Slim Jim antenna or something like that, which is something you can make yourself, but probably not for your first one. Yet, like for many people, like the first antenna they're building is a simple dipole or a quarter wave ground plane for 2 meters, because a quarter wave ground plane for 2 meters is a really simple antenna to make. Like you can make it with coat hangers or whatever else you have around.
Yeah, and I just got to say, my first antenna that I built after getting licensed was a 2 meter, 70 centimeter dual band Yagi with the 3 elements for 2 meter and 5 elements for 70 centimeters. I can not stress enough that I cannot recommend that as your first antenna build. Start with the simple antennas and work your way up. A Slim Jim is pretty easy to build. A dipole or a ground plane is also pretty easy to build, and you can build that for components you have around the house, and work your way up. Understand how the simple antennas work, and then work your way out from there.
Yeah.
When we're talking about antennas, I should have done some preparations, but there's a telescoping antenna that you can stick on an HT. It's called the 770 something. I can't remember the rest of it, but that is it's a bloody good antenna. I've done quite a few contacts from summits with that antenna on an HT. So if anyone with a bit of an easier internet access than me can look it up, then I'd recommend that one.
I can look that up, and I'm going to look up another antenna while you guys talk here and see here, because let's see, that's a half wave antenna, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got a loading thingy in the middle, so it's probably half wave on 2 meters. Yes.
Yeah, I had one of those as well, and really amazing until it broke. But that's more my fault.
As a telescopic antenna, you need to be careful with it. But before you break it, it works really, really well.
Yeah, that's that's the same for most things, I think.
No, many things don't work straight out of the factory.
Yeah, good point.
That's not the one.
That's not the one, but this is a variant of the big telescoping 2 meter antenna. So, and let's see. I'm going to.
The one I'm talking about it's got the coil in the middle and it's got telescopic elements beneath and above the coil.
I know exactly what antenna you're talking about, but I can't remember what it's called.
Try 770N maybe. I think it's a Nagoya thing.
Yeah, and I know that MFJ makes one as well.
No. Well, we're not supposed to talk about that, but well, they sell one at least.
Let's see. Did not help to see.
Oh, this is excellent live.
This is the part about. Yeah, I got it. I got it here.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's see if we can find it here, and actually put it up on screen. Let's see if I can find the correct. There we go.
Yep.
This one.
Yeah, that looks like it. Yeah.
Yep.
That you get that with both with BNC and SMA connectors. I have one with BNC on it, so I have adapters on my HTs. But yeah, that is a fantastic antenna. The difference when you start standing on a mountaintop with a rubber ducky, and you get absolutely nothing, and you put that thing on, and you finish your activations in 2 minutes.
Yep.
2 minutes, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but there's also a lot of fakes from these out there. So Nagoyas, if you buy them on various internet sites that some people like, then they are more likely fake than not, to say it that way.
But
they are, and
I just need to say that's a really simple antenna to make. That even the ones that make fake antennas can make good fake antennas from that one. So you might get a good antenna for €3.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna find. Let's see here. Is it? Yeah, I think it's this one. Let's see here. And if you want to be a little bit tactical, and I'm joking a little bit because it's actually a pretty good antenna, and Bob knows what's coming, and that's the APRS foldable tactical antenna, and I got this pretty much as a joke, but it actually works the same way. You get a big radiator, you get a half-wave antenna on your radio. It looks really stupid. It adds a lot of weight to the top of your radio, but seriously though, it works. And let's see, Tobias is sharing something here as well.
I think it's also a variant of what you just recommended.
That's the exact one I talked about, Tobias. That's the exact one I have, and I actually bought it for €40 from Wemo. But I've seen that as low as $3.95 or something on eBay or other places, and I think it shouldn't be hard to make a replica of that antenna. Anyway, it's probably going to work just as well. Maybe not be as durable, but yeah, that exact antenna is the one I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
What you can say is diamond antennas are really good quality and they last you a long time. Yeah, so you pay the premium, but you also get good quality, in my opinion.
And if you're in the US, because it's ridiculously expensive to ship these antennas to Europe, it's the signal stick antenna, which is elastic and pretty long and a good radiator. Let's see. They don't really have any good pictures on their website, apparently, though. But just Google it. It's a great little antenna. And it's flexible, and you can coil it around, and it just works.
Yeah, those are really nice, especially if you're like walking in places where the normal antennas can be, like if you have your antenna on your backpack or suit or something like that, and you get smashed in the face, or it gets tangled up in brushes or whatever, then having something like that could be really nice, especially
or if you're having your APRS at its full 108 centimeters out when walking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to see you going through customs with that APRS antenna, Morten. I just went through customs here at Frankfurt, and he showed a really keen interest in all my batteries. So, I'd love to see you trying to bring that antenna through customs. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I've gone through there with a G90 board with loose cables and loose battery. That was also interesting.
Yeah, I had the 705 in the backpack and lots of battery packs, and it basically looked exactly like the way Hollywood portrays bombs, homemade bombs. So, yeah.
And Charlotte asked if we could give links to these things in our Discord, and this is a good point to bring up that Discord though. hamshow.eu/Discord.
Yeah, it's already in there. So.
Yep.
And if there's anything we spoke about that you need a link to, you can always ask. I think we're all pretty responsive in that Discord. So just ask if there's anything you don't find.
Yep. So, but seriously though, there are a lot of different things to consider, and it's hard to give a solid recommendation on one radio. It depends
Yeah.
on budget and use case and interest and whatever. And but hopefully it looks like Charlotte is getting an Anytone, and that's a really good starter radio. Absolutely. And Ryan says that you said the B word at an airport, Bob.
I know. Just as I sort of said it, I was thinking, oh, all right, I'm not going to be home for a week now. But let's hope nobody heard.
But would you guys recommend, like, when you're getting your first radio, would you recommend getting a brand new one or a used one? Like, if you have a choice between two of them.
That's a tough one.
I would say if you get a used one, get one from someone you trust, or get someone's opinion as to whether you can trust the person selling that radio. If you do that, I wouldn't mind. I've gotten a lot of used radios. I've never had a problem with any of them. So, but do some checking up on the person selling them to make sure that he's someone that treats his equipment. This is going to end badly. Treats his radios well. Before you buy it.
Tobias, you're still on your overhead cam. I don't know if you're aware.
I am aware. I just thought you might like my handsets more than my ugly face.
So, like, don't buy a used radio from me, to say it that way. Then again, I don't sell them. So, and that's mostly, like, I use my radios hard outdoors, and quite a lot of people do that as well. Go out hiking, expose the radios to wind and weather and impact damage and whatever. In most cases, it may be hard to see, or some cases, but in most cases, you will see scratches or whatever. So, getting a used radio, as I said, from somebody you trust can be a good idea. But relying on, for example, a used Baofeng that you pick up for $1 or whatever it's worth, that's not a good thing.
That is something you should put on your fun account and not necessarily on your preparedness account.
Yeah.
And you should also be aware that some of the really vintage radios, if they're like 25, 35 years old, the SMD capacitors in there tend to give up and leak. That's always something when you restore vintage gear to watch out for. So, and sometimes when these SMD capacitors leak, then the acid, eats through the PCB, and then that's basically game over for the handset. So that's always a risk. So if you buy really, really, really vintage, so 20 plus years old, give it a test first, and don't just buy it. And I mean, you have to be prepared that it doesn't work, right?
and there's another aspect about buying old radios, though. Even though if they work, they might not have CTCSS tones, which is a necessity to open repeaters nowadays.
Exactly.
Yeah, most
I
at
mean,
least.
in the olden days, we just had the 1750 hertz calling tone, and that was enough to open a repeater. But these days, each repeater has their own subtone, which makes it very difficult to set up your new handset, because you really have to look in the internet. This repeater uses this subtone, that repeater uses that subtone. So it's a bit of a pain in the butt to set it up initially. But
good
point. You need CTCSS. Don't get anything without CTCSS.
No, and I just got to say this before I forget it again, because this has been back and forth to the front of my mind now for half an hour. Do consider joining a club and checking what the other members use, and they will also have repeater information and all that kind of stuff. And that's not only for HTs, but for any kind of radio. Get something that you can ask someone about how to use it at the moment where you can't figure out how it works.
Yeah. Or you can, for example, become a big YouTuber like you, Martin, and people will send you free radios.
Yeah, they will.
That's maybe not the cheapest way to get them.
Not at all. Sponsored content comes with a price, but that's the topic of a whole nother discussion. Ryan mentions repeater book, and I've had different kind of luck using repeater book, because the information is only as good as the person who have entered it into repeater book.
Yep.
So you might be lucky in an area where there's someone that really enters the correct information, or you might be out of luck and you're in an area where nothing is correct. I've tried to delete a repeater that hasn't been in service for at least 10 years from repeater book. And I'm the repeater manager for my club. And I always get an email back that, yeah, we're going to delete it. And then half a year later, the next time I open the repeater book app, it's still there. So repeater book is a good resource, but don't trust it completely.
Yeah, the Brandmeister network thing, that usually has more update, but I think that updates over the internet. But that's, of course, only for DMR repeaters. So
yeah.
I think we were talking about repeater books, and that ties into programming radios and programming repeaters and all sorts. I think we should mention also that if you're new, if you're getting your first HT, get something that you can program from a PC, because doing it from the handset, it's a really useful thing to know how to do, but it's really time consuming, really boring, and really error prone to do. So get a radio that you can program from the PC. And if you get an expensive one, it might not work with Chirp, which is open source software that works with a lot of inexpensive radios. But if you get a more expensive radio, I think it's called, is it RT Systems that creates software for programming radios? That's typically $25 US investment to get a license for that software, and you can program it from your computer, and it's so much nicer than having to wrestle with the front end interface to
I just
programming.
have to say this, Bob. 104 people agree to the fact that programming a radio from the front panel is a good idea. The rest of the people don't care how to program the Baofeng from the front panel.
yeah, and
but at least you're not bitter about it, Morten.
I'm not. I put quite a bit of effort into that video, and I was so sure, because it was a Baofeng video, that this one would just skyrocket. And with
everybody was doing the contest. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Pick up.
I have a good idea for another video for you, Morten. How to change tires on your car.
We're not bringing this up on stream, are we? Well, since you bring it up, this is a digression, but I was in the process of doing two things today. First of all, changing to winter tires on my, let's call it a vintage Nissan Leaf, and the second one was showing my daughter that changing tires is not a hard thing to do. This worked pretty well until we removed one of the summer tires on the right side of the front right side of the car. Yep. The moment the tire is off, the car starts, or the jack starts sliding a little bit on the surface. It ends up with the jack flipping 90 degrees and the car without a tire hitting the ground.
That's like the nightmare scenario when
absolutely. And through the magic of having another jack, I managed to actually jack the car up so I could fit it with one winter tire. And I figured, well, let's move it so it's not in the same spot, so I can try changing the other threes. And that car made a sound like something is not the place it's supposed to be, or the shape it's supposed to be.
Maybe you hit the disc brakes or something when it crashed down.
The visual inspection of the brake seems to be okay, but there are a lot of things that isn't supposed to hit the ground that hit the ground there. So I need to call my insurance company.
How convinced is your daughter now that changing tires is easy?
She's in car mechanics school, and
okay.
she did it at school, but then they had a huge lift and everything they didn't use a jack, to put it that way. So and they didn't have a gravel front yard, so that probably is a better thing as well. So
at least she has a good story tomorrow, like, unless this was her homework, like to do it.
No, it was. But the thing is, though, my insurance company does not take anything else than emergencies through the weekend, and this is strictly no emergency. Yeah. So I need to spend tomorrow morning with my insurance company to see if there's any any vague chance that this is covered by my insurance? If I've at some point said yes to the idiot's insurance, which I know hope that I have, but it's gonna be expensive. Let's put it that way. And thank you to everyone in chat that gives me good advice on how to jack up a car. It's a little bit too late for that.
Yeah, and but like, luckily you weren't injured, or your daughter, so like
No,
a car can be fixed more easily.
Yeah, it's a car. Just hope I can fix it so I don't have to buy my third Nissan Leaf. So let's see how that works out. But I'm fearing that it's going to be about a Flex 6300 money to fix this.
Ooh.
Ouch! Ouch!
Yeah.
Depending on how much stuff broke when it and how much they find that wasn't working the way it was supposed to on that old car as well.
Maybe your daughter can bring it to school and use it as a project.
Yeah.
We asked about that when we had a tour of the school, and we asked the mechanics teacher about having the kids fixing the cars, and he said, I don't want to do that with my own car. And when the teacher says that, I don't think that's the place to bring your car.
So if you watch today's show, you may not know what HT to get, but you will know not to change your own tires, and that daylight savings times is a really bad idea.
I think all year tires were the best decision in my life so far. So
that would be the one of the last decisions in your life if you lived in Norway. So
exactly,
that's right. But you can get away with it in the Munich area.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to drive diesel tomorrow and pay more tolls on the way to work. But I guess I don't have a charge then. So.
Yeah, to run that off and bring it back to topic just for the end there, you said you're switching to winter tires, but winter radio, this one is not a winter radio. Like just 10, 15 degrees below zero or freezing Celsius, and the display just basically stops working. It freezes over. So that's also something to think about. Like, not all of these things work in winter, so you need a summer and a winter radio.
And just as you might need a beater car, you can also have a beater radio. This is my take everywhere radio, because I mean, it's so cheap. I'm not afraid if I lose it, if I drop it, and I've ruined a lot of Baofengs over the years, and they're cheap. Yeah. They're not the best radio, but they're cheap.
Yeah, and you have driven over a radio before, like the RT43. That was pretty durable while you had it, at least. So
yes, I have.
So next time is dropping the car on it to see if that works.
Yeah, we can see if a disc brake hitting a radio will destroy the radio. I just need to consider perhaps getting a beater car for that. Car wise, it has not been a good season. Let's put it that way. So, we'll see what the auto shop says tomorrow when I need a tow truck as well. So I need to get all of those logistics to come together as well. So.
That sounds like a very expensive weekend, Morten.
Absolutely a very expensive weekend, and no fun was had spending that amount of money.
No, that's not.
So I guess that's it for today. As Bob said, you might not know which HT to get, but you know about the frustrations of daylight saving time, and you know how not to change the tires of your car. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next Sunday with a similar topic. We're going to talk about how to buy your first HF radio. So Charlotte, I hope you're licensed by then, and see all of you guys next week. 7-3L.
7-3.
Bye.